What's up everybody, SlashPlays here. Now today we're going to be taking a look at some other decks you can be playing for this new format. Now that Gamma, Gogeta and Sin are gone, what could you see next? Well, I would say anything. Go try some decks out, have some fun. Experience the game again. Go try different things. Now, if you're unsure on what you want to play, just remember what type of decks there are. So there is mill, there's hand destruction, there's board control, there's a bit of everything, right? And of course it comes down to the color identity of what you want to play and what you actually enjoy playing. So there are so many things right now. Go give it a try. Try something out. Have some fun. But I will give some mentions here of what decks you could expect to see or hope to see that will be for each color, including some rogue decks. We have black. Now, I think the higher tier decks that we're probably going to see more often would have to be something like Supreme Kai of Time, Cumber, and probably like God Trunks now that it's got the new support. And the reasons more is Kai of Time is just so strong now with that new-ish support that they made recently. Cumber is just a very well-structured deck. It loses out to some things in a degree, but because you're able to just choose their cards that are already in rest mode and give them Servant, they can't really restand during their next turn, so that really puts them at a disadvantage. But in general, it's a very powerful deck. It's got a lot of aggression. It's great for a black deck. God Trunks has some pretty decent defense for a black deck. Its damage is very good now that it's got a new boss monster. And I think for some other options that we could see would be things like probably Mecha Kabura could make a comeback from its new support. It's looking pretty toasty. I think it might have some sort of impact for like casual play. Hachiyak is something to expect as well. Probably one of the best rogue decks for black. AOD is probably an option as well. AOD has just been good always. And it really comes down to the pilot who really masters it or not. And then of course there's also Super Saiyan 4 Goku. It's a great aggressive deck to play as well. It's a double strike leader. You can never go wrong with that. And then you've also got like Bardock, the hyper aggro deck. We haven't seen much play of it recently, but it's still a very strong deck in general. So do expect to see some profiles of that out there. Then we have blue. Now for blue, I would say the most few that are going to be predominantly strong would have to be, more than likely we're going to see still Android 21 and the expert deck version. They are going to be very strong now because Gamma is gone. Of course this deck was already somewhat good against Gamma. It's going to be even stronger now that Gamma is gone, so there's less floodgates for it to deal with. Of course there are still the other colors to be able to deal with it in general, but I do think Android 21 is in a very good spot right now. It has all that Android support because it never got touched in a ban list. So it's still going to be predominantly strong. And then there's also going to be Soul Striker. That's definitely going to be something in the meta for sure. I think that's definitely going to be replacing Gamma more than likely. You might see some of that Gohan SH deck, but I don't think it's like really up there. I believe that's something that's going to be just a bit under and like good local play. I could be wrong, obviously, but I do think things that will be in more average good play as well you might see around is you might see some return of Vegeta Ramp, some Beerus, probably some Super Saiyan 3 Goku as well, kind of replacing Gamma for that sense. I think Ramp is still pretty good now because they didn't get rid of that 6 drop card. So because God Ceiling's gone, you can still play your 6 drop pretty easy. And then be able to ramp 4 or draw 4 from it. Then you've also got the new baby, the BT21 baby. I'm going to build that deck. It looks so good. I think that whole combination where you play your 5k cards and they get servants, so they're now 15ks and you can play them for free from under your field card. It looks so good. The support looks pretty good. It looks very archetype heavy, but it looks pretty good. So I'm definitely going to go dig my fingers into that one. Then there's probably going to be a few Goku Roses, that ultimate deck. I'm sure we're going to see some people play that for sure. I think it's going to be a pretty strong deck. It looks promising for sure. If you haven't played it, go pick one up. It's not too expensive, I think. I'm not sure about the US dollar for it, but some people did say in the US it's kind of expensive. But yeah, if you got the money laying around, go get it. It looks like fun. It's worth trying, right? And I think the Trunk starter deck as well, the one from previously, I do think that one is gonna be strong, but I don't think it's gonna be like top contenders. But it has some good support for it, definitely. So that is something you might see some play of. And for more rogue, I'm pretty sure we're gonna see some Janemba as well out there. I mean, Janemba always shows up. It's kind of like Yellow Sin in that sense. It comes and it goes really quickly. But we will see some Janemba out there, I'm sure of it. They even made some new support for it. Not a big fan of the support. I don't think it's that great of a card, but yeah. And then if we're moving on to red now, I would have to say decks that we're probably going to see would be more than likely the Set 2 Vegito, because that Set 2 Vegito never got hit. It's pretty consistent. It can get a little clunky sometimes because you're running so many colors. Depending, of course, if you're running the one including yellow or without yellow. I personally prefer the without yellow. It's less clunky in general. And you can kind of change up your playstyle quite quickly compared to the with yellow. Because your energies are kind of important during your turn. So you don't want to completely tap yourself out too soon. But I would say Set 2 Vegito, we're more than likely going to see some Pan GT. It's just a very good leader in general. The Power Pole Goku from the new set, that looks pretty good as well. That whole using your extra card to place it under your card to make it stronger, it looks very good. The generic boss monster for it looks good as well. You remove a Goku or a Piccolo from underneath it, you restand it, so you'll be a 25k double strike dual attack practically. I would say the Super 13 that we have, that's probably going to be seeing quite a fair bit of play as well. That is just a very strong deck in general. Its boss monster is pretty good. It's very easy to play. I mean, no matter what, at least by turn 3, you're going to already have everything you need. And then you can run some pretty cool tech with it as well. They can KO cards, they can remove cards from their hand. It's a fun deck. I would also say U7 Goku is probably going to see some play as well. It's just a very consistent deck. It's not like super good, but it is still a very consistent deck. Its support for it, it's okay. The damage for it it's pretty good. It is a little bit energy expensive compared to when you looked at like Sin Shinron and Gogeta and that. But in general, it's still a very good deck. I'm definitely going to be playing it for this new set. I also think for other contenders for red, you might see some U7 Gohans come out there, because it is also, it draws like a well-oiled machine. That is just such a good deck, the U7 Gohan. Sadly, of course, it relies on a bit of unison, and right now there's just so much unison removal. So we might see a little bit less than that, but it's still a very good deck in general, so do expect to see some play of that. People will definitely be testing around with it. You've got Cooler Mill as well for red. I think that is definitely gonna see some play because of that new Whis card as well. It's so good for the deck. It gives it such good defense. It's a really good floodgate for it. Then we're probably gonna see some GT Crew as well. Probably less of it, just like I said with the U7 Gohan. It relies a little bit too much on the unison, but there is a trick to that deck, which I have in a previous video, and I will mention that here is, if you're interested in some deck profiles, I have some slightly older ones before the set release that are in the description below. So if you're interested, you can check them out, and you can always use that as a foundation to help you build what decks you want to build, right? But the great thing about GT Crew, a lot of people misunderstand that. They think Black Smoke Dragon's just going to remove their unison, but by turn 2, if you have set it up correctly, you're going to have more than 7 markers on your unison, which means they cannot remove your unison anymore unless they attack it and then try to Black Smoke Dragon. But if they do that, you're going to end up flooding your field so quickly, they're going to die, because they're not going to be able to do enough damage directly to you while trying to clear your unison. So it's a win-win situation that way. And then we've also got decks that we're probably going to see some Bulma, some launch for Rogue, because that's just, you know, it's a deck that shows up every now and then. It does very well, and then it disappears. And of course, we may actually see some Invoker show up now, the red one, because of that Whis card. That was the problem, right? Is that for Invoker, it had a really difficult time for defense because it lacked being able to kind of restand energies and use more energies for defense. But with that new Whis, if you play 4 copies in your deck and you can just pop one out every time it's removed, pop another one out, I think you're going to be fine. I think it's going to be a pretty decent deck now. So do keep an eye on that. I think it'll be out there. And if we're going to go next into another color, well, I would have to say things for green we're probably going to see is more than likely the Gohan. That Gohan is just going to be so strong. I can't wait to play that. I hope it's the playstyle that I enjoy, because I'm probably going to main that deck. We've got the Gotenks starter. We can't forget about that one. I think it's still going to be a very strong deck as well. It can use the support as well from the recent cards, because it's a Saiyan, so it can use the new counter as well. The King Piccolo, we're probably going to see some play of that. There have also been some other videos out there that are showing like what you can play now. So from like Crossworlds TCG to the Lookout, of course. So there is plenty of people who are explaining what is out there to be played. And I was a little late to the party for it, but I already had in mind what list of cards and decks you think you're going to see. And I do think there are some that were missed as well, like Turtle School. I do think Turtle School is in a great place because it still counts as a Saiyan leader, so it can use some of the support when it's awakened. It can also use that the Vegeta Ape, the 19k critical, because you have a field card, so you can play that. We might also see some BT21 Cell. A lot of people don't think it's going to be that good because of the erratas to it. I actually think it's going to be very strong. I do think it's still going to be very strong. It has so much mill potential. Don't get your hopes up too early yet. I think there is still a chance for that deck. But we are probably going to see some of the ultimate decks still return as well, because you can use the Z leader with it, but it's still generically very good. And then of course, Android 16 is another deck that we might actually see some play of, because if you do the build where you don't play cards between 30k to 35k, you can ramp with it very quickly, and then you've got all the support for green and the support for blue and all the support for androids too, don't forget. So I think it's going to be a very strong deck as well for green. So if you don't want to play Android 21, you can play Android 16. So that's probably going to see some play as well. More than likely for other decks too for green, you might see some green cooler, the one where you spam all your unisons. That is something that's still pretty good. It didn't really get any new support recently, and unisons are starting to be kind of phased out at the moment, but it is still a very strong deck. We're probably going to see some people try it out. Just like people will try out the Gogeta BR. We've seen some people recently try it out. I do think it's a little sad ever since they changed the ruling where you have to now play your 6-drop, attack once with it, tap 1, add it to your Z energy, tap 1, and then play your Gogeta 8 cost. So it sucks that they did that, but it's still a very good deck apparently. And because it's Saiyan, you can use the new support, so we will probably see some people out there play that deck. Videl is another contender for a rogue deck to see. Definitely going to see some Reddits more than likely because of the new support as well. And it's a Saiyan, don't forget. So all these green Saiyan decks are really going to get a good pump up from this. And I think that is more or less for green probably what we're going to see. There might be some other ones. And if there's any I'm missing and I haven't said it yet, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think is going to be, you know, something that's played that's going to just blow us all out of the water that no one expected? For example, let's say the multicolor red Barris leader where you play red-yellow. Maybe something like that, right? We don't know. So that's what's exciting about this phase of Dragon Ball Super. But for yellow, I would have to say it's more than likely expected. We kind of know what's going to be played. It's going to be Margin Vegeta. It's going to be, because it's just such a consistent deck, it's a Saiyan, a yellow Saiyan, so it has so much aggression now. It's got its great floodgates. We've got the Vegeta Goku, the BT21 leader. It looks very strong. You're going to be drawing like 2 per turn. And with the existing support for the Saiyans already, and the floodgates, it makes it super strong. Then we're also going to see some Vegeta Trunks more than likely. It has to use a bit more of an archetype, like an engine in it, but so you lose a little bit of space, but if you want to play the long game, it's an extremely good mid-range deck. We're probably going to see some people still play that, but there'll be more than likely more people wanting to play Majin Vegeta and the new one as well. And then we've also got, we can't forget, Frieza. So Frieza set 1 is still around, and that's still a very, very strong deck. So expect to see a lot of people play that. And for other decks, I would have to say the Goku starter deck is still very, very strong. We will more than likely see some people play that. The Vegito, the Spirit Bomb one, from like set 20, I believe. That one is a very good deck as well. It's very archetype heavy. It draws pretty well, but we will more than likely see some people try it out. There is also the Goku Fearless Fighter, I believe it's called. Yeah, so Goku Fearless Fighter, that one is also a very good deck. We'll probably see some people play that as well. We've got the new Frieza Swap, the yellow one. I believe that's going to be a very strong deck as well. Its support is pretty good. I'm not sure if we're going to see it as much as like Majin Vegeta and stuff like that. It looks good, but it looks a tiny bit clunky. But I do think that's going to be something that's going to see some play. And I expect to see some Yellow Sin as well. And the reason being is it's seen some recent play. It hasn't really gotten any new support besides that counterplay that they made. The 4-cost one that's just generic for any yellow deck now. But I do think we will see some play of Sin Shinron. It's still a very, very controlling deck. And it is still good in this format, especially now that Gogeta and Sin are gone, because that was just constantly removing your field. So being able to play your card for it to be able to stick around that little bit longer really does make a difference for Yellow Sin. So we might see some more play of that. And more or less, this is what I think what we're probably going to see. And I think the main contenders for each color is probably still going to be more or less the Majin Vegeta. Green, we're going to see the Gohan. For red, we're probably, it's a bit trickier, but I think we're probably going to see the Power Pole at first for a while. Because it's still got quite a lot of 15k beat sticks it can play. And then, of course, you're making them into 20ks with the Power Pole, so you can just keep switching around with it. It looks like it's going to be a little tricky to play, but we might see that around. For blue, I think the main contender, it's not going to be like straight one leader that's just going to be dominating. I actually do think it's going to be a split between Soul Striker and 21, because some people want aggressive, some people don't, and some people want more controlling. So I do think they're both going to be more or less 50-50. And for black, I think the top tier deck, I mean, I would be surprised if it was God Trunks. I think it's going to be very good, but I'm not sure if it's going to be better than like Kai of Time and Cumber. But I do think Cumber is probably going to replace the spot, because the Sin and that are gone. You can now control the field a bit better and still have that aggression. And yeah, Cumber was pretty good with the aggression, since your opponent's always playing battle cards when they're playing like yellow and red and things like that. So it's going to be more or less easier to deal with. So yeah, this is my thoughts. If you haven't given the video a like already, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Thanks for watching. Peace.